Welcome to another episode of Band Director Bootcamp, the podcast with productivity and wellness tips for busy band directors. I'm your host, Lesley Moffat, and I'm really grateful to be sharing this platform with you. As busy band directors, we know you don't have lots of time to watch lengthy professional development webinars, so we share 20-minute tidbits with takeaways you can use to support you in this awesome profession and in a healthy way. And today I bring Laura Estes here to talk to us. And I first became familiar with her this fall. I was conducting an honor band in Vancouver and had the opportunity to select the repertoire we did. And I came across a piece of hers called Kvetchers, and I was fascinated by it. And I reached out to her and I said, I want to know more about you. I want to know more about your music. And we got on a call and she was so gracious with her time. And it really helped me understand the work better and made it better for the students. That's part of this whole education, just making it, much more in depth. And so I was so grateful to her for that. I thought, hey, I'm going to call her again and ask if I can get another favor. And I invited her to this podcast because she's recently retired, but taught for more than 30 years, 38 years, I think it is, as a band director. So if somebody knows what it's like to be a busy band director, Laura's the person. So welcome to the show, Laura. And we're really grateful for you being here. And could you just give us a little more background to the audience today?
Yes. Hi, Lesley. Thank you for having me. I'm honored. So I taught for 36 years. And that I just wanted to say that. I started out in piano. That's my main instrument. And when I was 8, and then as soon as I could join band, I did. And so I was in band and played piano, and strangely did not go into music when I first started college. I was not happy, and then pretty quickly I changed my major to music, and here I am. So I taught 36 years, most of the middle school, but a lot of high school as well. And then I retired in 2018.
So you missed all the fun of the pandemic. Woo. Smart woman getting out of there.
That was a happy coincidence.
Awesome. Well, Laura is going to talk to us today about expecting the unexpected. And if you met her and talked to her, she's just super chill. And I was really surprised that she mentioned normally she is, but she talked about one of the challenges that she's faced in her teaching career is things happen. I don't know about the rest of you, but maybe minutes before you have to start a class, you get an email and it's got your panties in a bunch or whatever. And then you have to go and get on that podium and teach a class. And Laura has dealt with this kind of thing before. And this was intentional on her part on how to deal with things like this. And so Laura, can you talk to us a little bit about why you became really good at this and what this looked like in your classroom as far as dealing with all the things that come at us all the time as band directors?
I realized pretty early on that it didn't matter how much you prepared for something or how much you planned for something, that something always happened. And when that happened to me, I was just on this emotional roller coaster during my teaching day, up, down, depending upon what was happening before each class. Any of these things could involve, your band parents. It could involve a student. It could involve a schedule issue. It just didn't seem to matter how much I planned. There was always something that would happen and it would get me upset. And then I found that I had to, always kind of control myself and get my emotions in check before the next class, or how, because you can't let that affect how you deal with people and your administration and colleagues and students. So at some point, I realized that that's normal. And so I just, in my head, I just decided that I was going to always expect the unexpected. And that helped me to plan and to cope with things as they did happen.
So So you couldn't plan for all the things, like you said, that happened. So you had to have some techniques that you could use when something rattled you and you had to get back together. What are some things you might have done in those moments?
Well, you could deal with this on a large group basis or even on an individual basis. I remember when I first moved from high school to middle school, I thought that I had planned out my concert cycle and when to pass out certain amount, the music to give X amount of time before performance. And what I didn't realize was, at least in my school district, how many meetings we would have, how many times the students, we would have a total schedule change of the school, with middle school, all the things that they did that we didn't do in high school. And I was like, we're missing all of this class time. And I thought that I had prepared, but, and then you have the anxiety like, are we going to be ready for this performance? And I decided that I was going to handle that better next time so that I wouldn't have that kind of emotional roller coaster. So actually passed out the music earlier, or I made sure that I was doing more run-throughs so that things were more cohesive for the students, so that just in case schedules changed that I, couldn't anticipate, that it wouldn't have such a big impact.
Yeah, that is hard when you're in a new school and things come up and you don't know. Sometimes you'll see an email about something and you'll be like, oh, it doesn't make sense. So it's not on your radar. And then you're like, oh, it does make sense. I remember my first year of teaching at Jackson High School, where I used to be, and it said it was Wall of Fame Day was coming up. And I'm like, well, I don't know what that is. It's not relevant to me. And a day before Wall of Fame Day, one of the older students said, well, are we supposed to wear our uniforms for pictures tomorrow? I said, well, when are pictures? Why would they be tomorrow? Nobody told us. That's what Wall of Fame means. And I scrambled. I'm like, wait a minute. That's what that meant? They were taking pictures for the Wall of Fame, but also for the yearbook. And I had to scramble because I didn't understand that. I didn't know that. And that panicky feeling, will I reach everybody? And to think how, I'd already seen several classes that day. How could I get word out? And then I still had to teach a few more classes and it was really unsettling. So you don't even know what you can have to plan for sometimes.
And sometimes that is really important, because if your students aren't in uniform and they're taking yearbook pictures, that's a huge impact on your program.
Yeah. And they won't feel good about themselves when they look at that and they look like little ragamuffins who just fell in off this. Yeah. And so that's important. The other thing I noticed you had mentioned in the thing you filled out before here was sometimes in the moment you would just have to pause and take a breath because you had to continue. And there's power in that, isn't it? Just, like in music, when we rest and that silence before we go on, speaking of silence in music, you also are a composer. Talk to us. Did your composing happen? Did you do some of that in classes? Did you fall into it because out of necessity, or was it another interest you had? And how did that impact your teaching?
I had no intention of composing ever. It really never crossed my mind. I would arrange things a little bit here and there or rewrite parts or things like that. But I never ever thought about being a composer until my last year of teaching, and arranged something for a double read group of all things, and decided that I had a talent for it, and so that's what actually spurred the decision for me to retire, because I could have just kept going. I wasn't burned out or anything like that. Could have just kept going. So I thought I took a leap of faith, and it turned out to be okay.
Pretty good timing too. Right before.
In fact, I had spent an awful lot of time not learning how to use the music writing programs. I was doing everything by hand.
You and I are of that same generation, right? Yeah. It was easier than learning all the other stuff, was writing it out by hand until you took the time to master it. And then all of a sudden the productivity is like, what? Tell us a little bit about some of the compositions you have out there, because there's a lot of us that teach middle school band that are looking for new things and stuff. What kinds of pieces do you have?
Oh, well, as a middle school teacher, I just kept noticing over the years, gaps in types of music. We'll be playing something and my bassoons will come up to me from seventh grade or something and say, how come my bassoon part is so boring? Or how come I always do what the tubas are doing? And I was like, And so, things like that I just felt like, sometimes the music, I don't think this way now, but at the time I thought a lot of the music, it just was pandering down to the younger levels, that they weren't truly written to bring out what these kids could do. And so that's what I've been trying to do with my music. So I've been writing at levels mostly from 0.5 to level 3 or 4.
Well, as a trombone player, I've more than once said my part's boring, but I got to tell you, when we played your piece Kvetchers in the honor band, the low brass and double reeds were like, this is so cool. So thank you very much for remembering us in the back there. Woohoo! Hey, before we get to our final question, let's just take a minute to talk about how our listeners can put some of these practices we've been talking about on Band Director Bootcamp podcasts into practice in their own lives. Welcome, Band Director Bootcamp listeners. If you're feeling a bit burnt out and are ready for support and accountability partners in your wellness and productivity, we have an amazing opportunity for you. Join our 90-day virtual bootcamp, a community initiative designed for busy band directors like you who love their job but seek a more sustainable approach. We'll meet weekly, discuss your wellness goals, and develop strategies to help you achieve them. We'll tackle productivity hacks and fine-tune systems for the upcoming school year. With 35 years of experience, I've got some tricks and tips up my sleeve that I can't wait to share. So, as we move into a new season of our lives, if you want to feel empowered and supported by like-minded individuals, this is your chance. Reach out to me at banddirectorbootcamp.com or click on the link in our show notes to schedule a 15-minute call. Let's ensure this is the right fit for you, get you signed up, and embark on this wellness journey together. Because together, we rise. All right, we are back to find out what advice Laura has especially for our newer band directors, because she spent 36 years doing this and she told us she didn't burn out. She loved it. And only because she started to really love composition, she decided to go ahead and leave the classroom. So with that kind of enthusiasm and joy, thinking about these newer teachers that are coming out there, what's something you'd like to say to them so that they too can enjoy the fruits of their labor for a long time like you did?
Well, for me, I never liked surprises as a band director. You make your plans. Somebody has the solo. You want that person playing the solo, all kinds of things like that. And like I said earlier, I just noticed that my days were just filled, just being on this emotional roller coaster. And you can't prevent that completely. But I truly felt a difference as soon as I decided and realized that nothing is going to completely go as you planned. And so if you expect that as a young teacher, have a bunch of contingencies, always have your backup plans from small to large, whether it's with individuals, small groups, large groups, your band parents, your admin, just whatever it is. Just make sure you have a bunch of contingencies so that you can pivot quickly and expect that something is not going to go as planned. Then I think you're going to be a lot healthier, not as much anxiety. And it definitely helped me.
Yeah, we were saying earlier, when you respond to situations. Everyone's watching. The students are watching. And the way you respond is going to set the tone for what happens next. So you cannot underestimate the value of thinking through potential scenarios and what would you do in those scenarios. And to those new teachers, if you see more experienced teachers doing things and it looks easy, know that we struggled. And we struggled lots of times. And then it became easier because we had to figure our stuff out. Just like learning to play a piece of music. Good grief. It's hard the first time when you're doing things. But the more repetition and the more practice, the easier it becomes to, if you miss a note, to just jump into the next part or to do something like that. And developing our teaching skills is very similar to developing as a musician. So, you had some really down-to-earth suggestions for us in that. So Laura, I want to thank you for not only being here today, but for the literature you're putting out there so that we've got some fresh stuff, some new things and a new voice. Hearing your music out there is really exciting. And I appreciate your generosity with your time and talents to talk to directors when we have questions or to show up here to get word out to do more than just your compositions. You're impacting music education, even though you're not directly in the classroom anymore. So thank you for joining us for this edition of Band Director Boot Camp. And thank you to all you listeners who are making a difference in kids' lives through the magic of music education every single day. The work you do matters, and so do you. Join us next time on Band Director Boot Camp for another episode of productivity and wellness tips to make your life a little easier.